Hi, Room 7 parents. This is Mrs. Ernisse. Welcome to the Back to School video. Thank you so much for taking the time to view this so you know what's going on in Room 7. I am Mrs. Ernisse, as you should know that already, and I have been teaching for 15 years. The last 6 years, I have been an instructional coach, which means that I was teaching teachers. Now that we have Common Core, I decided to come back into the classroom so that I can give it a try myself before I can go off and teach other teachers how to do this. So I do have experience, although I have been out of the classroom for about 6 years. I am exploring Common Core. I'm coming up with new ideas. So this is going to be a really fun year for these students because they're going to be my guinea pigs. I have a bachelor's degree from Fresno State and a credential for teaching as well from Fresno State. I have my master's degree and my administrative credential, both from Cal State San Marino. I am a mother of four, ages 19, 11, 10, and 8. My 8-year-old's also in 3rd grade. I love playing the ukulele. I love hiking. I love camping. Do not like coffee. Do not like chocolate. Kids always think that's interesting. And my goals for your students this year is for them to be collaborative, for them to love learning, and for them to be problem solvers. We want them to be able to figure things out on their own. Now that you know a little bit about me, I would like to know more about you and your student. Please send an email to my email address here on the screen. Tell me in that email who lives with your student. If there are adults that live with your student, I'm hoping so, what times they work. This is going to make a difference because if you have a graveyard shift, it's less time that you have with your student, and it's just good for me to know those things. I would like to know any personal goals you have for your child, what you want them to succeed in this year, and anything important you believe I should know, any traumatic events, maybe some happy events, anything you think I should know about your child, please include that in that email. And the sooner you get that to me, the better. Let's talk about grades and homework because that's usually why people come to back to school, to see what the teacher's perspective is on grades and homework. Now, many people believe that we come to school for grades, and that is not the case. We actually come to school to learn, and getting good grades is a byproduct of our learning. So grades to us are simply a measurement telling us how well your student is progressing towards the standard. It's pretty much a scale. So when you step on a scale, you look at a number, and that tells you how much you weigh. That's all a grade is how far you've gone towards the standard. Now, I don't do any kind of extra credit or anything like that because that's going to skew that measurement. So just like you can't step on a scale and say, but scale, I didn't eat that cupcake. The scale is not going to adjust because you didn't eat that cupcake. It's going to give you the answer based on how much you weigh. And so grades are that. So now that we know what grades are, to me, it's just a measurement. I want you to know how I decide to measure your child. I want to ask, if you were to jump out of a plane, who would you decide to pack your parachute? If we have 2 people packing a parachute and they have the same average grade and they have the same amount of experience, you wouldn't really have a whole lot of information to base your decision off of. But if I told you that parachute packer A started off, like most learners do, pretty poorly on their first attempt, didn't do very well, but as they progressed, got more and more used to what they were expected to do, and at the end of their experience had A's. So they were quite proficient at what they were doing. They have the mastery of what they were doing. And if parachute packer B started off really strongly and then had a little bit of growth, but pretty much plateaued all the way through, you would have 2 different trajectories. Parachute packer A started off really low and understood it by the end of that time period. Parachute packer B started off really well in average range and finished off also in average range. Now, if we average those 2 grades, they both end up in C's, don't they? But if we're talking about jumping out of a plane, I don't think that's enough because I want to look at the most recent attempts that parachute packer had to pack that parachute. So if I zoom in to the latest attempts, I'm definitely going to want parachute packer A, the black parachutes, to pack my parachute because I know the last 3 times that they've tried to pack a parachute, they did a very good job and that parachute opened up really nicely. But parachute packer B had an average. So they didn't have that mastery of that parachute packing. Wouldn't that make a big difference? So when you sit down with me and I talk to you about your child's grade, that measurement, I want you to know that I'm only using the most recent assessments to give you that measurement, because everything before that, all those failures are good things, because that's where you start. When you learn something, you aren't very good at it at the very beginning, and then you improve. So I don't count those attempts towards the grades. Those attempts might be assessments, but they also might be practices or activities they do in the classroom or even at home, which brings me to homework. This might freak you out a little bit, but in room 7, there is no homework. And I know that this is a tough pill to swallow, because tradition has it that homework happens in school. You expect homework. But hear me out here. I don't give homework for 3 reasons: control, time, and professionalism. The control factor is a big part of it. Oftentimes when students receive homework, I see that their handwriting mysteriously changes it, or that somebody is able to give them help that they didn't know how to do in the past, and maybe now they know how to do it in a different way. Maybe it makes them a little bit more confused. So I like to control what it is and how it is that these students are doing. So if I gave homework, I wanted to make sure that it was done with the proper procedure. And if I spent 6.5 hours in the classroom teaching that student how to do something, I want to make sure that they don't get confused with what it is that they're going to be doing at home. Time is another aspect of it. They are with me, like I said, for 6.5 hours. And during that time, it's my job to help them understand and to teach them. Those 6.5 hours spent with me is a long time, especially if you compare it to how much time they spend with some of you at home. If you have a job and you're not getting home until 5 o'clock, maybe you're spending 3 or 4 hours with your child. I would like for you to spend those hours enriched in experiences. I would like for our students to be exposed to things, to have soccer games and baseball teams and participate in dance, go to a museum, or do something together with their family. I think that's very important, and I obviously couldn't do that in the classroom, so I hope that happens at the home. And my last reason is my professionalism. This is my job. My job is to teach your child. I get paid to do so. And I spent several years going to college just to understand the pedagogy behind teaching. Now, teaching isn't just assigning things and expecting them to turn it in. Teaching is actually much more scientific than that. And I feel like I'm able to really address the students' needs in the classroom much better sometimes. Not to say that you aren't a great teacher, but better than others who haven't had the opportunities to learn about pedagogy. And so I feel like this is my job and I'm going to do my job, and I shouldn't expect you to do my job. Same as a doctor wouldn't expect you to go home and perform surgery. Now, the doctor might ask you to eat right, to take your medicine, to exercise. Those things are a lot different than teaching. Those are practices. So we don't have homework, but we have practices. This would be the equivalent of you exercising and eating right and taking your medicine. These practice activities should be done by the student independently. So I expect your child to read 20 minutes every day. 20 minutes every day, even on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And this is important because I don't have the time. We don't have the 6.5 hours here is all spent actually teaching. And so those 20 minutes are important for the student to take that responsibility home with them. Now, I don't do a reading log because what ends up happening is, and I've done this, I'm guilty of this, you end up just writing a book because you run out of time, and you're not being honest with what it is that student did. Instead, what I do is I have authentic accountability. Your student's going to be assigned a book, and they are going to come in the next day and work with me in a small group, and I will be able to tell whether or not they read that their assignment by whether or not they're able to answer my questions. And that's much more authentic and that discussion than any reading log could possibly be. I do send home some math practice pages. Most of those have self-check options, so you can see if it's the right answer. I also am going to be posting the answers online so they can check it themselves. They should be doing that on their own. So you should not have to help them with those things. If they get stuck and they don't understand, they can bring that in the following day, and I will work with them in the morning one-on-one for the students who didn't understand that math practice page. But you should not be having to do any of the teaching. And my final practice activity is actually a teaching activity that the students teach you. These are called the What I Learned journals. The What I Learned journals are simple spiral bound notebooks. And what the student's going to do is take a concept that they learned in the classroom and teach it to you, or teach it to an older brother, older sister, to somebody, even to a stuffed animal. They need to teach it to somebody, because what research has shown from the learning pyramid is that students learn most, actually everybody learns most, by teaching others, as you can see here in this graphic. So they're going to be teaching you. Couple of quick things for you to know about our classroom. I don't believe in double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is a concept that United States government actually says that there shouldn't be. That means that you can't be tried twice for the same crime, and you can't be punished twice for the same crime. So I try to keep everything that happens in this classroom self-contained and handle it on my own. Now, there are times where I've tried and I've exhausted all of my recourses, and I might enlist you to come and help us out and problem solve a particular issue. But for the most part, you won't really hear from me that your child was misbehaving, because I'll just handle it in the classroom. Another reason I do that is because I don't want to give up that power that you wait until your father gets home, that mothers sometimes have about their fathers, or sometimes vice versa, gives up power, because now the father has the power instead of the mother. And I don't want to give up the power. I don't want to say, hey, I'm going to tell your parent, because I just gave up all my power by doing so. I want to handle it here in the classroom logically. Well, I want to remind you that attendance is very important. They cannot learn if they are not here. So please be here. Have your students be on time. And please remember that they have to be picked up on time, not too early and not too late. Remember that we learn up until the last minutes of class. So please refrain from picking up your child 10, 15 minutes early before dismissal time. I want them to stay here until the very end. I'm going to go ahead and skip this video, but I really encourage students to fail in my class. We want that effective filter, which is meaning that you feel safe, and to take the risks, because that's where growth happens, is when you take a risk. And from failure, we learn a lot. There's this really great movie called Meet the Robinsons, and this is actually a clip from that movie. I encourage you to watch this with your child if you haven't already. And there's a great scene that they celebrate, and they say, keep moving forward, and they celebrate his failure, and they say, from failing, you learn. From success, not so much. So please make sure that you are celebrating your child's failures as much as you are their success, because it means that they're trying. In our classroom, we have several programs. Accelerated Reader is a program that is going to give points to students for their completed quizzes. So they read a book, they go on the computer, they take a quiz, and they get points for that, and then they get rewarded from those points. Accelerated Math is a program that allows students to either accelerate if they understand topics and are ready to move on, or decelerate if they are struggling and need additional time with a particular math concept. It's differentiated instruction at its finest, and it's a great program we have here. Code.org is a website that we are going to be using in the classroom, and your students will be learning how to code. Yes, code like as in computer coding. It's a really great program, and by the completion of it, they should be able to write rudimentary code, which is really exciting. We are also using Typing Club, which is a ability for them to speed type so they can become more familiar with typing, because I feel like that's very important and a very important life skill. And the last website that I have listed is chalkup.co, just C-O, there's no M in it. And this is going to be our primary resource in our classroom for communication. I'm trying to go as paperless as possible. And so you're going to go to Chalkup, and I'll ask questions to the students. I'll post videos. I'll post documents. Anything that I'm going to be sharing with the class, it will be here at ChalkUp. Now, information for code.org, Typing Club, and ChalkUp have been sent home to you with you, stapled together with your child's name. Please make sure that you address their password, usernames, and passwords, and keep those in a safe place. Your child will need an email address in order to log into ChalkUp, so I recommend you use Google. That's a really good one. Procedures in our classrooms. This is what our schedule looks like. In the mornings, we do journals, and journals, they just write whatever's in their head, and spelling is not important. And the big reason I do that is because I pull individualized spelling from the journals so that not everybody has the same spelling list, because we're not all at the same level. Some of us are really good spellers. Some of us need some help on the simple words. So we all have individualized lists, and they all come from journals. Then we have a morning meeting. We all get together. We reflect on the previous day, and we make goals for the current day. We do reading, and we use social studies and science as well as literature to teach reading skills. Then we have vocabulary and English language development instruction. We have a writing instruction. We have differentiated instruction. Those are small groups where I address your students' specific needs. We have math time, and we have flex time. And flex time includes PE, computer lab, and library time. And that happens at the same time at 1 o'clock every day. Also, we have Class Dojo, and that's the website that I use to keep track of students who are being responsible, being respectful, being diligent, and also deduct points for them being off task or disrespectful. There's another username and password for you to log on to Class Dojo in the packet you received, and that way you can find out how your student is doing in class in real time. I do want to remind you that we are a caring community of learners, and everything we have in our classroom belongs to the entire community. So I would really appreciate it if you kept all personal belongings at home. That way we don't have the issue of that's mine, because we're too busy learning. We don't have time for that. I do encourage your child to bring water to school every day, a bottled water that has a lid on it. And because water is very important for students to learn, the brain has to be hydrated in order for it to receive information. Every Friday, your child will bring home a Friday folder. It will have flyers and some of the classwork that was done in the classroom. Now, a lot of the classroom ends up in our portfolios, so you won't see everything that was done in the Friday folder, but some. And we need volunteers of all types. We need volunteers to come into the classroom, and I need volunteers who are willing to help at home, doing things like cutting and pasting and coloring, those types of things. So if you work and you feel like you want to contribute to the class, that's a great way for you to do it. Please contact me if you want to volunteer, because I really need the help and I would really appreciate it. Other things that we need are pictured here. It's also in your flip book that says important information from room 7 that you received. It's a blue or a green flip book. We are in dire need of disinfectant wipes. So because we like to clean our tabletops daily, since we have lots of germs and lots of snifflings, and we don't want to spread those germs. So we wipe those down. So we really, really need those, as well as tissue. It is cold season, so we're getting a lot of sniffles around here. Other things that I would appreciate are expo markers, because we go through them a lot. Ziploc bags, house plants, and paper, and then pencils. We're very specific about which pencils we use. We like the black Dixon Tincadora. I can never say that word. They're pictured here below. They're not the cheapest pencils, but they last a lot longer than regular pencils, and we don't have to sharpen them as much. So if you can get your hands on some of those, oh, you would be a hero. That's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if you have any questions, please make sure you give me a ring or you email me. Have a fabulous day.